The American public, shattered by the assassination of a president in 1963, would experience even more chaos in the late 60s. The Vietnam War escalates, civil rights leader Martin Luther King is slain, and Robert Kennedy is assassinated in Los Angeles as he's campaigning for president. But these events couldn't prepare our country for what it's about to see. In 1975, 12 years after his murder, the American public would be shocked when it sees a film showing John Kennedy's execution. And for Midlander Rickie White, this same year, he and his mother would be questioned by Washington investigators looking into the alleged conspiracy behind Kennedy's assassination. Tonight, we continue our series of exclusive reports, JFK, the West Texas Connection. Viewer discretion is advised.
The President John F. Kennedy is getting a warm welcome this morning here in Fort Worth, the third stop in his whirlwind trip through our state.
It's 1973 when this movie Executive Action starring Burt Lancaster hits theaters across the country. The movie is based on the book Rush to Judgment by author and Washington attorney Mark Lane. This Hollywood version of the assassination of President Kennedy would for the first time allege a conspiracy.
Secret Service are under regular orders to stay with the president no matter what happens. Once they get him to the hospital, they'll probably filter back. But for at least a half hour, you should be entirely free of them.
I'll have 6 men with Secret Service credentials in Dealey Plaza. Their insignia for this trip, incidentally, is double white bars on red.
Lane, who wrote the screenplay, says orders from upper management forced him to take out any CIA connection in the plot. Lane says the movie was a financial success, but short-lived. 2 weeks after its premiere, it was pulled out of theaters, and by 6 months would completely disappear until 1991, when it was released again, this time on video. But whose order did the film get pulled? Lane says no one knows for sure. Let's now fast forward to 1975. Allegations of a cover-up explode when Americans see for the first time Kennedy's execution. It's called the Zapruder film, shot by Abraham Zapruder, who captured the president's arrival in Dealey Plaza.
As the car came down, the last shot hit him on the strip in front of us.
Researchers say as you look closely at the film, it shows the probability Kennedy could have been shot by a bullet fired from the front. Although he didn't know it at the time, in 1975, the same year the Zapruder film was released, Midlander Rickie White would have a brush with his father's secret identity. An identity he says he now knows as the gunman behind the grassy knoll.
In 1975, in Paris, Texas, there was a break-in where Rickie White and his mother lived. And the people that broke in stole a box of material, assassination-related material. In this box of material were all of these photographs that Roscoe White had.
Howard says the men who burglarized the Whites' home were arrested in Arizona with the stolen photos still in their possession.
The police took the material out of the car. They realized it was assassination-related, so they informed the FBI. The FBI comes in, and lo and behold, there's a photograph of Oswald no one's ever seen before.
A year later, in 1976, the stolen photos turn up in Washington, D.C., in the hands of the newly formed House Select Committee on Assassinations. Members of the committee traveled to Paris, Texas, to talk with Rickie White and his mother. Out of the blue, they asked Geneva White if she's ever worked for Jack Ruby. She denies it. In 1978, a family friend, who we will call John Doe, warns Rickie that the House Select Committee is going to peg his father as the #1 shooter in the Kennedy assassination. Rickie doesn't believe him, but when the committee volumes, Roscoe White's name is mentioned in the investigation.
So even in 78, the House Select Committee knew about Roscoe White, but never followed up on it.
And though Geneva White denied it in the late 70s, what reason would the House Select Committee have to ask if she had ever worked for Jack Ruby? We may never know. But what we do know is that more than 10 years later, Geneva would admit to Rickie that she in fact had worked for Ruby in 1963, just prior to the assassination of the president. That revelation came after her picture was spotted in a magazine with none other than Jack Ruby. Tomorrow night at 10, a man believed to have been involved in the conspiracy, who we'll call John Doe confronts Millender Rickie White, about how his father is about to be fingered as the triggerman in the plot of Kennedy's assassination. You won't want to miss it.